With the Celtics, for my thoughts, I want to talk about spacing. So on the Knicks Film School podcast, we did a mock draft exercise. GMAC, Andrew Claudio is going to love that I'm bringing this up. We did a mock draft exercise where we drafted players between the ages of 25 and 29 to see who could create the best team possible. So my draft strategy was to create the best spot up 3-point shooting team that's ever existed. And it worked extremely well. I think I was able to accomplish that. Even though this team did not actually exist, it was just a figment of our draft imaginations. However, when opened up for a vote on Twitter, voters had me in last place. They said this is the worst team of the four that we had created, and I think that's probably because I didn't have enough.
You're definitely not still spiteful. By the way, you're definitely not still angry about that. You have not been waiting to get this rant off.
No, I didn't just co-found my own podcast with you specifically just to be able to talk about this. Like that definitely didn't happen. No, but yes, I think to me, what it shined a light on is that in a general sense, among other things, it showed me that there's just an unappreciation of the value of spacing. Like I think that spacing and gravity, or gravity meaning how much off-ball players draw defenders towards them on the offensive end, these are the most important factors to me in professional basketball. Like one of, if not the most important factors. And it can turn a defense that is, a team defense. Everybody talks about defense being a team concept and you have to be on a string and work together. It turns a defense from a team almost into individuals trying to play defense because, and it makes the court smaller or bigger, I should say. And it makes everyone on the court better. So if you have elite shooters on the court, the defense is going to have a much tougher time sagging into the paint to provide help. And of course, defenses want to sag into the paint to protect the most valuable shot, which are shots at the rim. But what do they have to do that? They have to give up clean looks for the second most valuable shot, which is an open three from a high-level shooter. So that extra couple feet, towards the shooter that off-ball defenders need to be means that they're going to be slower to be able to help drivers. They're going to be slower to be able to make rotations. They have to further to go. Thus, everyone on the court is getting higher efficiency shots, higher value shots. Now, why did I go on this rant? Because it relates to the Celtics. The Celtics have loaded up their teams with shooters. And Joe Mazzulla's philosophy is literally to put up threes. There are no reluctant shooters on the court. Last year, the Celtics led the league in 3-point attempts. It was 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. It was 42.3 per 100. So for reference, the Knicks also shot a ton of threes, but took 6 fewer threes per 100. Now, the Celtics have even better shooters than they had last year, including shooters at all positions, 1 through 5. They're playing my dream 5-out scenario with Porzingis and Horford as their two bigs. We're talking Holiday, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Jason Tatum, even Sam Hauser, Porzingis, and Horford are all either good or elite shooters in the league. So this is going to be a test for the Knicks. I think they're going to have to absolutely dominate the offensive boards to have a chance to beat the Celtics. Or just, pray that they get extremely poor, shooting luck for the Celtics that night. I think it's an extremely tough matchup. I have the Celtics as the best team in the East. I think this is going to be a proof of concept year for the value of spacing, and that spacing changes based on the types of shooters that you have out on the court. So we'll see, but I'm excited for the game. I'm excited that it's at MSG, and it's going to be a great first test for the Knicks. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, Geoff.
The Celtics are going to test Knicks fans' willpower because Tibbs is great at figuring stuff out. The one thing we've always struggled with him in 3 seasons is stretch fives. And look, this is a totally different conversation, but I've never been a fan of matching high-end talent with volatility. I actually think that the great team should be trying to reduce variance. I think that's why Michael Jordan was so successful when his teams were the best, because his shots were incredibly high floor shots. He wasn't a Steph Curry. Like if you're a great team, but you're reliant on the volatility of threes, you're more likely to get upset. It's harder for you to put together 4 consecutive high floor series in a postseason setting than it is if you're Michael Jordan and you're shooting 50% from 2. You're scoring half the time, and so no, maybe your ceiling isn't as high, but that doesn't really a ceiling doesn't really matter as much because you don't get extra points for winning playoff games by more. You get points for winning the games. And so what the Celtics are going to do this season, there are going to be stretches when they just look nuclear against the Knicks because they bring the Knicks kryptonite, and they are packaging him with 4 other guys who are going to be able to shoot and are going to be willing shooters. So, I mean, we saw it in the last preseason game. We saw it. I mean, I know it was the Knicks backups, but let's be frank. It was the Knicks backups, but it was a better defensive lineup than what the Knicks starting lineup is going to be. It was Deuce McBride. It was Mitchell Robinson. It was Quentin Grimes. It was Dante DiVincenzo. All those guys are plus defenders.
Like peak defensive lineup. Yeah.
It was like the Knicks' best defensive, the best defense they could throw out there. And the Celtics torched them. They did whatever they wanted. And that's going to happen this season. I'm a little less sold on their ceiling and from a team success standpoint because, again, to bring it back to my point, I just don't believe in high volatility great teams. I think you need to pair it with something more, a foundation that's more consistently sustainable. And so even though that 73 win Warriors team didn't win the championship, and even though they were pushed to the brink in 7 in the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder, and then they eventually lost in 7 to the Cavs, the reason that they ended up winning 3 championships in 4 seasons, the reason that they were consistently successful is because their foundation, even though they're known as the 3-point, light years ahead offense, they had defense. That was what they brought every single season. They were an elite defense led by Draymond Green. That is why Impact Stats love Draymond Green. People think he's a joke. He looks like he's holding a backpack when he shoots, and he averages 8 points a game. How good could he really be?
He does look like he has a backpack on when he shoots, though.
That's wild. He was the second most important player to that dynasty, second and a half if you want to include the Kevin Durant 3, the 3 years Durant was there. Obviously, he's not more important than Kevin Durant was, but people put him in conversations with Klay Thompson as if they're no. Draymond Green is a tier above Klay Thompson, and it's because he was the anchor of that defense. So to me, the Celtics season is going to come down to how consistently they can defend. And Kristaps Porzingis was a good defender last season. He had a great rim protecting season last year. In fact, EPM loved him. They put him in the same tier as Robert Williams, which Robert Williams was in Defensive Player of the Year conversations. Like, everyone loves Robert Williams. And they're basically saying that, oh, you're getting like 90% of Robert Williams defensively, and now he can shoot threes. That's insane. Like, the Celtics are scary. I'm not downplaying the Celtics. But if they win a championship, if they win the East, they're either one, going to get high-end shooting luck and just go nuclear from 3 consistently, which is much harder to depend on, or they're going to build a defensive foundation around Drew Holiday on the perimeter, consistent defense from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the wings, and Kristaps Porzingis is going to stay healthy and protect the rim to a degree that Robert Williams was able to last season. That's what I think of the Celtics this season.
Yeah, I just to close the loop, because I agree with most of what you said. I think that volatility, like shooting volatility, is a really complicated thing. I think that 3-point shooting volatility actually reduces when you're getting open 3-point shots. And it's always going to be volatile to some extent. These are long range threes that we're talking about. Guys, the kind of the variance of makes is going to change from game to game. And we see guys like quickly go through these streaks where he'll be hot for a few games, shoot like 60% from three over the course of 5 games, and then shoot like 10% from three over the next 5 games. Like, it's like, that's the volatility that we're talking about. But it really depends on the kind of threes that you're getting. There's always going to be some volatility, but if you're getting open threes consistently, generally we don't see as big of swings in terms of makes and misses. So I think the Celtics are always going to get a ton of open threes just because they're all excellent shooters and the court's going to be spaced. Not only that, they have guys who can get to the rim when they really need to. Although Tatum can be a little sketchy with finishing at times, he can get there, and so can Brown. So I hear that concern, but I really think the thing that I agree with you the most on is that the sample size is going to kind of determine what we see from the team. So what I mean by that is the Celtics, I think, are going to be a regular season powerhouse as long as they're healthy, because all that matters is that we have an 82 game sample that we're talking about. And over the course of that sample, guys are going to shoot their percentages. All of these guys that I mentioned are going to shoot at least league average from three, and some of them are going to shoot 40% from three. So we're going to see that balance out over the course of a season. Now, in a short series, they could all go cold. Who knows? That can obviously happen over the course of 4 to 7 games. So I'm not sure. I'm not saying they're going to win the title. I think, I would have the Bucks right now as far as like who's going to win the title, but it's between the Bucks and the Nuggets to me. And I have the Celtics on the outside looking in, but I do think as far as the regular season, health provided, the Celtics are going to be the top dog in the regular season to me, just based on that large sample size and just seeing guys hit their numbers. I think they're going to win a ton of games. So,
do you want to say something? I'm just going to say something maybe a little crazy. I think that the 5-man lineup of Holiday, White, Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis might break offensive rating and net rating record. I think it's going to be the best 5-man lineup in basketball, and I'd be surprised if it's close. Given like minimum minutes or whatever, whatever the acceptable minimum is for lineups that play a lot, I think it's going to destroy the league. Because I don't understand what you do against it. They have everything. We get jokes off about Jaylen Brown not going left or whatever. He's a good offensive player, a really good offensive player. Who cares if he's not worth $300 million? The Celtics needed to keep him if they weren't going to trade. They couldn't risk losing him unless they were going to trade him for a really good player. He's important to their team. He's a good offensive player who's still young and getting better. Jason Tatum is a star. Kristaps Porzingis is coming off a very high impact season on both ends and is going to help them intangibly by helping with his gravity off the ball. Drew Holiday is now their fourth. Drew Holiday and Derek White are basically like the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. They don't have to do anything. The Drew Holiday discussion has become very, very frustrating to me because he was the second most important player on a championship team barely 2 years ago. And we saw what that looked like. We all watched it with our eyes. He was the third option on offense, so there was less pressure on him offensively. And his defense, he was probably the most important player defensively. Although obviously, the fact that him and Giannis and Brook Lopez were on the court together is preposterous to me, but whatever. All of a sudden, Chris Middleton gets hurt, and Giannis is still Giannis. He's still a great player, one of the best players in the league, maybe the second best player in the league. I can't believe Jokic. But he's still flawed when the game is close down the stretch. You can't just give him the ball and get a bucket. That's not what Giannis does. Somebody needs to be that guy. And with Chris Middleton hurt, they were like, okay, Drew Holiday, it's your turn. Of course he's not going to look great. That's not the kind of player he is. That's not why he's great. And so we're now judging him in this context that isn't really relevant to what makes him great as a player. He's about to return to that context. He's going to be, assuming he doesn't fall off a cliff athletically, or there's not because he is older, he's 33 years old, assuming he's able to be the quality basketball player he was the last few years, his impact is going to return to being as high as it's ever been because the context of his role has now reverted to what is optimal for him. So he's going to be an incredibly important player to the Celtics. And Derek White, is really fucking good. Like that lineup, Derek White is the worst player in a starting lineup. Derek White operating in his optimal paradigm is the least impactful player in a starting five. That in and of itself tells the story about how good that lineup's going to be.